Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hey everybody, I'm Brian. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Grief to Growth. And whether this is your first time listening or you've been walking this journey with us for a while, I want to welcome you to the show. The show is about navigating life's most difficult moments while seeking deeper understanding of who we are, why we're here, and where we go when we leave this physical world. My mission is to give you hope, to offer healing insights, and help you connect with an unseen world that continues to support us. Today, I'm welcoming back to Grief to Growth a very special guest. Her name is Sally Hawk. Sally is the founder of VerySoul.com, and this time she's brought with her someone who lives and breathes the heart of VerySoul's mission, Sherry Abdou. And Sherry is an evidential medium who's completed over 200 sessions on VerySoul, and we'll talk about what VerySoul is. Now, Sally joined me a couple of years ago when VerySoul was just getting started, and now it's a thriving global movement with more than 2,500 mediums across 50 countries and nearly 100,000 spirit communications shared. What makes VerySoul different is how it solves three huge problems that I see in the mediumship world, and that's finding a good medium, finding an affordable medium, and finding an available medium. And we'll dive into how Sally's personal loss transformed from corporate powerhouse to spiritual visionary, and how VerySoul, built with guidance from spirit, has become a sanctuary for people seeking connection and healing. You're also going to hear from Sherry, whose spiritual gifts blossomed while caring for her dying father, and how the loss of her own child has deepened her mission to serve grieving parents. As a caring listener with helping parents heal, Sherry brings not just skill, but a deeply personal understanding of grief and love that transcends this life. And together we're going to explore how mediumship can support parents after loss, what real spiritual development looks like, and why ethical, heart-centered communication with spirit is actually more needed than ever. If you're curious about connecting with your loved ones, or you're wondering what to look for in a trustworthy medium, this conversation will speak directly to your heart. And don't forget, if you'd like to be part of the community where these conversations continue, visit grieftogrowth.com/community after listening to this, and we can carry on the conversation there. So with that, I want to welcome Sally and Sherry to Grief to Growth.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate you having me back. And I'm glad we could bring Sherry.
Yes, thank you for having us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have both of you. I was saying before I got started, this is only my second three-way interview, so we'll see how this goes. So I want to bounce it to both of you. But Sally, as I mentioned in the introduction, I've had you here before. When we talked before, VerySoul was kind of just ramping up. It was established. It was there. I saw the concept. I was so excited. I was glad to have you on. Tell us what VerySoul is and how it's changed since our first conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so before I do that, I need to thank you, Brian, because you have been a supporter right from the very beginning. And I even hear you from time to time talking about VerySoul on other podcasts. So thank you for that. You understood the concept right from the beginning. The concept was to solve all of the problems that spirit was seeing. So the people on the other side saw an efficiency problem and they saw an access problem. They want to get to their people. So you have Shayna on the other side. She wants to be able to reach you. And other children want to be able to reach their parents. And there's too many barriers in the way to get that done. So if you can imagine yourself as a person in spirit, what had to happen in the past was you had to first influence your person to try to get them to look for a medium. And then you had to try to help them navigate the jungle of finding a medium they could trust, much less affording, much less finding availability. It was a lot of influence that was required by spirit, a lot of energy on their part. Now what they've created is a global center that makes it very easy. And I can give you some examples later about how that works, but makes it very easy for them to find mediums who have been developed, who they can trust and who they have access to and that they can afford. And that's, we're a community of mediums who take this very seriously, and really want to help spirit make those communications.
Yeah. I love the way you said that. You said it from the spirit perspective because we always think of it from our perspective. How do I find a medium stuff? We don't think about like people in spirit, like how do I get to my loved one on earth? So I love the way you kind of flipped that whole thing. And you brought with you Sherry today. So tell us why Sherry?
So Sherry, she has the total perspective of what's happening here. She's experienced great loss. She's experienced that loss before she knew she had the mediumship skills. She found her mediumship skills, and she is a super developer. So, or I want to call her a super user of VerySoul in terms of having just really buckle down and used everything that we offer in terms of practice space, coaching, and all the different capabilities to move through the process very quickly and develop her skills. Sherry, like you said, she's done over 200 sessions in less than a year. And that's phenomenal. That takes a huge amount of commitment, but I've watched her develop and it's just phenomenal. So I really wanted her to be here to talk about what that experience was like and share more with others.
And Sherry, I want to bring you in now. And but before I ask you about you and your journey and everything, when someone has a child in spirit, I want you to talk about your child. So tell us about your child.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to talk about Gabriel. In 2010, I was pregnant with my third child, and I was not able to complete the pregnancy. And Gabriel passed almost at my second trimester. And it was my first real touch with grief. I actually didn't know I was in grief. I had mental fog. I was sad. I no longer wanted to work out or go outside for walks. All of my normal was just dialed down. I even went to my doctor and said, I feel like someone unplugged me. And here I was supposed to be so excited. My oldest was getting ready for college. I had all her dorm room things set up. The pregnancy was a surprise, but welcomed. But I was just lifeless. I was absolutely lifeless, and I didn't know what was happening. I had no concentration. And anytime I would bring up the miscarriage, it would be shut down by very meaningful people. But they would say things like, you already have two kids. You're older. You didn't even meet the baby. And oh, Brian, I mean, my heart, a mother's heart just crumbles at that. So I learned quickly to not speak about the miscarriage, but still, 6 months, 8 months, I'm still at that just very low energy, not knowing if something's wrong with me. I actually told my husband, maybe something's the matter with me. And, we don't even know. And a good friend of ours who's a nurse, he went and spoke to her and she said, she's in grief. Your wife's in grief. And so that journey began for me then when I at least had language around what I was feeling, because I wasn't really touched by it on that level before.
Right.
Yeah.
And then did that lead to your development of your mediumship ability?
No,
Okay.
no. It wasn't until 2016, his health was declining. I went to help with his end of life care with my brother and my mom. And things changed. Things changed even during just his care. Very vivid dreams. Vivid dreams where I would see my father in the dream, maybe in his 30s, dark hair, darker mustache, very odd clothes, maybe in the 70s. My dad was a sharp dresser, but not in my dream. And I would see him in the room, in his bedroom, where I was helping to care for him under hospice care. And in the dream, it was almost like it was an overlay, like he was in the room, but not of the room. And I knew, I don't know how I knew, but I knew I was being given a glimpse of what Dad was doing as we were caring for him. He was thriving. He looked healthy. He wasn't riddled with cancer. but I didn't make the full connection. It was bits and pieces like that that kept dripping in
Hmm.
gently from spirit, very gently.
Wow. All right. Okay. And so, Sally, back to what Very Soul is for people that don't know, and I've talked about it so much, I take it for granted. So, let's just go back to the beginning and the basics of like, what is Very Soul? How is it different? And how did you develop it?
So, VerySoul is a community of mediums from all around the world who start off by practicing together. And that sounds simple, but we've got a lot of time zones, we've got a lot of languages to navigate, and we created a very efficient way to help make good use of mediums' time. It seems silly, but prior to VerySoul, mediums were operating back in the, I don't know, 16th century or something. There was very little technology used and very little efficiency of any kind. Hard to imagine that compared to the times of Uber, right, and Instacart.
Hmm.
So basically, VerySoul just brings it all up to speed and makes it very efficient for mediums to practice, but then also provides different programs where they can continue to take on more challenging scenarios, and that helps them develop. As you know, Brian, VerySoul was not designed by me. It was designed by Spirit and handed to me in a request to build this. So even while we're building it, and we're still building parts of it, those in spirit still stay very involved and they have lots of advice and they continue to surprise me in terms of all the things that they have considered. But the main thing that I want to point out is that the intention is to get to make this accessible to clients so that those in spirit can reach their people. And so part of our program is we offer free sessions. We offer a free session to anyone in need through something called our donated program. And that's one of our levels of mediumship training.
Okay.
But those mediums are very skilled. And many of them are already professional outside of Very Soul. But in our program, they're still doing donated readings. And then mediums can also become professionals with us where they can start taking payments. But that free program is a really important part of what we do.
Yeah, that is it's a great thing. And as we talk about this, I think we have to kind of keep in mind two perspectives, at least for me. I've referred mediums to you guys, mediums who are saying, I don't know how to get started, I don't know how to market myself, etc. And I refer clients to you guys, clients that say, I can't find a medium. And I can, or again, back to I can't find a medium who I can trust, who's affordable, and who is available. Because you might get two of those three, but it's hard to get all three at the same time. So those are problems that I see it solving. And I love, again, you're giving credit to Spirit for designing because I just think it's ingenious, and I don't see anything else like it where it's a great marketplace that for mediums again that can put themselves on there. Is also great place for people to go. So whenever anyone asks me, who do you recommend, I'll give them a list of my favorite mediums, but I'm also like, go to VerySoul because it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and there's a number of different things built into the system, into their designs that are just brilliant. That
Hmm.
some of which I understood from the beginning what that was going to do, but some of which I didn't. And now I've watched it play out for, we've been up and running for about 3 years, and it's just fantastic what they're accomplishing. So, simple things like how do they match practice partners up? Because they asked for a specific algorithm to match practice partners. How do they match clients with mediums? They had asked for an algorithm to do that as well. And it's very clever to watch what happens in those matches because there are both great experiences for the clients that occur, but there are also important development experiences that happen for the mediums at the same time and healing experiences for the mediums. So it's things like that. There's so many layers to what's going on. It's a little bit hard to put into words.
Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and after having talked to you, I know about that. So let's talk again from a meeting perspective for you, Sherry. What is it that made you decide that you wanted to join VerySoul?
I had a friend that I had taken classes with, and I had taken every class with every respected medium, mentorship practices for years. And this friend was actually a scientist, a retired scientist, that said to me, "You need to be on VerySoul. You need to practice there." And I didn't do it. I was busy. And then she contacted me again and said, "You don't understand. You're going to practice with other mediums. It's global. You're going to meet the nicest people. I'm having the best time." So I thought, oh, it's going to be complicated. It wasn't complicated. It was so easy. Everything was easy. Once I got on the site, um, everything was done for me, and I'm not a tech person. So the fact that my calendar was set up without any concern, the scheduling, the time zone, all of these things. And so VerySoul for me took me out of the classroom and into a program where I can practice with other mediums at my level, um, together to enhance our skills. And we supported each other. And then after that, it takes you, into another step of maybe giving readings to what they call starter clients, and that's friends and family of mediums. And then the mediumship I found changed. It
Hmm.
was very different than the practice. Something changed. Spirit steps in. And Sally had told me that.
Hmm.
And she said, you will grow. You will grow. And you do in
Yeah.
many ways. So it really took me out of the classroom. It gave me the experience to be with a very heart-centered platform. Sally doesn't like to take any credit, but she is the backbone of this platform. And she's been guided to have the most amazing team work with her. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot to have it running at that caliber and
Hmm.
that standard. And she expects a lot of her mediums. You have to have integrity, ethics, come from a heart-centered place, or you'll be asked to leave.
Yeah. So when you talk about practice, you're
Yeah.
saying you would sit with other mediums and you would read each other?
Yeah, you
Okay.
sit with other mediums and you read with each other, at a beginning level, an intermediate level, an advanced level, and then you're able, when comfortable, to step up a little bit more, to work with these starter clients. And assuming all goes well and you feel comfortable, you'll go up a little bit more, and it changes again, because then when you get to the donated session, um, everything changed for me then. Like
Hmm.
everything changed at that moment. I have such reverence for this work. And I tell Sally it's really a pinch me moment, because I cannot believe I'm being given the privilege to sit and be witness to the connection that's being made for someone that might come to that donated session that's never had a reading. They come in with all sorts of nerves, maybe
Hmm.
because of their perception of TV, or maybe they think it's going to be strange. But most of the mediums are professionals. They were professionals, or they're currently professionals, and they've been able to hone these skills that we all have. We just happen to really work at honing them. But things, changed and are evolving for me. But it's the 2000 mediums, 2,500 mediums before me that set the foundation for me to be able to come in and follow their integrity and follow their lead.
Yeah.
So it's been a privilege.
Yeah, and I will tell you, as someone who I have a lot of friends who are medium, and I work with a lot of solopreneurs that are, trying to set stuff up. And mediums typically are not great at business. We're usually really good at one thing and not so great at other things. Mediums typically aren't great at, business. And I've set people up on, calendaring software, Calendly or Acuity, and trying to build a website, and all those things. And VerySoul takes care of all that for you. And you can still have that and be on VerySoul. And it's, because I know, Sally, you're not about like, we're not going to let mediums, quote, compete. You can still do your own thing.
Absolutely.
But if you don't want to have that, I'd send people like, look, don't even worry about building a website or trying to do a calendaring system. Let these guys handle it for you.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things I would just add into what Sherry said and what you just said, Brian. One is when you're thinking about the practices, This isn't just sitting with the same people over and over. And this is a huge advantage that we have to what most experiences mediums have experienced from the past. So mediums
Sure.
who did grow up in their mediumship, even 10 years ago, did not have access to the global diversity of practice partners that we expose these mediums to. And what that means is you have to be even more open to the things that people in spirit are trying to tell you, to the words you use, to how you make sure you're phrasing things correctly, because it's very easy to have miscommunications when you're working with people who grew up in a different culture or a different socioeconomic situation, et cetera, et cetera. So that is layered in all the way from the practices through
Mhm.
each one of those programs. The diversity of experience is what makes the mediums develop so fast, what helps the mediums develop so fast.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but again, I've worked with a lot of mediums who are developing, and they'll take a class from one instructor, and then they'll go to another medium and take a class there. And so you've got a small group of people in your circle or in your class or whatever, maybe 5 or 10 people, and you're practicing on each other, but they're people that you've known because you're sitting there, with them the whole time. So this gives you a totally different experience, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's think of it this way. We did some market research at the very beginning of contemplating VerySoul, and what we found is that the typical mediumship client is a middle-aged white woman who has extra money. Um,
Hmm.
and there's all sorts of reasons why, all sorts of barriers to connections and knowledge and, income, all sorts of things.
Right.
Once you break that down and you say, okay, that's not our target audience. Our target audience is anyone who needs this connection, anyone who needs to know that their loved ones are still there and supporting them. Um, that is a much, much broader range that you need to learn to operate in. And
Yeah.
so Spirit has done this beautiful job of easing mediums into that in a way that, you could tell from what Sherry was saying, at every stage, even though we warn the mediums, okay, there's going to be a new set of learnings and it's going to be a little bit painful maybe sometimes. And, just understand it's learnings. But it's just a brilliant construct that helps mediums find a whole new level of openness and availability.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right when it comes to like the typical person that goes to a medium, there's it's a fairly narrow slice of the demographic. And and again, like you said, there are lots of barriers. There's cultural, sometimes there's religious barriers, and there's money. Because there are mediums out there that charge $800 a reading, $700 a reading, et cetera, which is not everybody can afford. And people think, well, if they're more expensive, they must be better, and I want the best.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true. Absolutely. I want to just break that right from the beginning. Absolutely not true. I've tried myself before I knew that I had mediumship skills. I tried some of the most expensive mediums and was often disappointed. Some mediums who are feeling competitive in their marketing will purposefully bump their prices up to create that perception.
Yeah,
Some mediums will also purposefully fill their calendars up to create the perception of being fully booked and then come back to you with a last minute opening. And I'm not saying this is the general way that mediums work. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus.
right.
I, all I'm saying is, let's be transparent. Let's be available. We're here to serve, to help with these communications. And every single person deserves to know these connections.
Yeah,
And, we don't want to preach that to anyone. We don't want to tell them what to believe. It's their journey, but we do want to make the experiences available.
completely agree with you. And when it comes to mediumship, I always say, it's like any other industry. There are bad mediums, there are decent mediums, there are good mediums, there are great mediums, and there are frauds. I mean, it doesn't mean that all mediums are frauds. There's certainly not, but there are frauds, and there are people that are unethical in that field, and they bring down the reputation of everybody else. And this is what I was saying when we first got started. I know VerySoul solves so many of these problems because I don't have to worry. is this person ethical because you've taken care of that? Is this person, are they trained because they don't even get on, they can't even put themselves out there as a paid medium until they are reach a certain level of proficiency.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. And the level of proficiency has to be proven in so many ways from so many different angles. There is
Hmm.
not a more thorough process for ensuring capability.
Yeah, and I know there are a couple people out there, and I'm associated with one who certifies mediums, but as far as I know, there are no official standards, at least in the US, of like you go to this board and you have this thing. So even when you see someone who's certified, now you've got to trust the person who's certifying them. And when it comes to VerySoul, now again, and I want to be, you can be as transparent as you like, but when it comes to, because people are going to say, okay, well, how are they making money? Because I know some of these certification programs, you just pay them money and they'll put you in the directory.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's right. Yeah. How are we making money? Is that a
Yeah,
question?
yeah, yes.
We're not. We're not. We're trusting spirit right now that there will be opportunities to make the platform self-funding. So we are set up as a for-profit company, but we're set up as a benefit company, public benefit company. That
Hmm.
allows us to stay focused on our mission instead of on profits. And that way we can continue to do the work the way Spirit designed and the way Spirit requested. And we're just doing it all with complete trust that it will become self-funding at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fantastic, and we live in a world where we have to provide, but people might be thinking, as a medium, it's like, well, how much is this training going to cost me, or how much of my what I charge are they going to take?
Yeah, we don't take anything. The mediums get 100% of what they charge. They decide their prices. We don't interfere with their pricing. And we don't charge mediums anything for using the platform. It's completely free. But we do hold them to high standards in terms of ethics and in terms of being responsible, in terms of how they operate. And yeah, so it's a place. Not every medium wants to be a part of an operation like Very Soul. It's a place for people who are serious about this work for the right reasons, and that's how we turn out such highly skilled and highly compassionate mediums.
Yeah. And I can say again, it's going to sound like I'm pumping this up, but I am. I'm a big believer. That's why you guys are on here. That's why I asked you to come back, Sally, because I do refer so many people to Very Soul, and I've heard nothing negative from anybody. I've had a couple of readings from your mediums. I've actually formed some relationships with one of them, or formed a relationship with one of them that we do some things together. She's fantastic, and I just got her like randomly when I came to the site. So my experience has been really good, and I love the fact that this removes barriers for the medium. So that's why I'm glad we have Sherry on here to talk about from her perspective, but also for people that are looking for that. So Sherry, you've done I guess it sounds like over 200 sessions in a year. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's that's a lot. So what's that experience been like for you?
There is this sense of urgency within me, but it's calm. It's the only
Hmm.
way I can explain it. Um, I couldn't even believe that it was that many readings. But just going back to certification and that topic real quickly,
Hmm.
I know that there are certifications out there that may allow you to do 5 readings or 6 readings. Sally has you doing many more readings, many more practices. So, the beauty of that for the medium is you're learning to hone your skill, you're learning discernment, you are learning to be fully present in circumstances that are outside of you. Someone can be Someone was in a sauna trying to get a reading to get away from her children.
Hmm.
You can be in a situation, someone was in a fast food restaurant, someone's in the car. You just learn to deal with different things.
Wow.
And it's wonderful because it does help you grow. And my experience has just been tremendous. I continue to take classes. I continue to learn and understand about grief. Um, I love being a caring listener for helping parents heal.
Hmm.
And I think all of those factors, I'm been a caregiver to my mother for 8 years. All of those factors come into play. Spirit had a greater plan that I don't think I fully understood until I was at the Helping Parents Heal conference this past August, last summer. Listening, and you were one of the speakers, listening to all the wonderful speakers. And I was walking with two of my friends to another talk. And it dawned on me in that moment that, oh my goodness, the 8 years that I've cared for my mom and watched complicated, prolonged grief in her, not titles that I love, but maybe ones that people will understand, taught me how to hold space and have the capacity and the compassion to sit with someone that may repeat themselves 10 times, that
Hmm.
may have guilt, that may have shame, um, that may have a lot of stories around the event of their child passing, their spouse, their parent, especially when it comes to passing by suicide or fentanyl poisoning and those topics. So everything prepared me, everything prepared me and continues to prepare me because I understand that this is just the beginning, just the beginning. This comes with tremendous responsibility. So I will be a forever learner to bring the best version of myself to this platform and to helping parents heal.
Yeah, awesome. Just as you were talking, Sally, I don't know if you saw it, there was an orb that went across the screen.
I did. I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I was
People
wondering if
tell
you
me
saw
that
it.
all the time. I've yet to see it. When I give readings, they're like, there's orbs. I'm like, darn it,
Yeah,
I
and
never see
it's
it.
because I'm a skeptic, and I've seen people say, "Oh, this is
I don't
something that's
see it.
dust or something." When they
Mm-mm.
go up, that's why I realized I know it's not dust, and it went like this across the screen.
Yeah.
Sherry's got a very special energy, a very special
Yeah,
Oh,
energy.
thank
One of
you.
the things she was just talking about, Brian, I just want to add on, um, is about resilience. One of the things that Spirit gave me right from the beginning was build resilience in the mediums, build resilience. And so I tell the mediums at different stages, I tell them different parts of it. But
hmm.
when they're going into the working with the general public part, I explain to them this part is going to help you learn how to do sessions in the middle of a football field while the football game is going on. Um,
Yeah,
there are these funny traditions and mediumship that we've carried forward over the years. Um, and it kind of puts boundaries around, like you have to be in a quiet place and you have to be alone and you have to be and you have to be and you have to be,
yeah,
all these rules. And those things do help somebody who's learning mediumship, and they can be necessary for certain mediums given their development level, but you can develop past that. I mean, obviously you can develop past that or nobody could ever do platform work. Um,
yeah.
so
I'll let you continue about it, but it's really interesting you said that because when I talk to people about getting readings, I give them all those rules. I'm like, because don't be inebriated, don't be in your car, don't be in a quiet place, be by yourself. And it's interesting, but when you branch out to the general public and people are going to stumble across a site, maybe they've never had a reading before, and they're like, there's reading scheduled for 2 o'clock, and they happen to be at Panera, they might say, I'll just do it on the phone.
yeah, well, and every client they click boxes. If you've been through our process, so you click a box saying, "I'll be alone, I'll be in a quiet place, I won't be distracted," yada yada yada, and yet they show up the way
Oh,
they
yeah.
show up. And the mediums know that if they're ever uncomfortable with the situation, they can just end that session early.
Hmm.
If a client is, um, in a situation where the medium just doesn't feel capable. But it does over time help the mediums become even better at what they do. And then when a client shows up in a quiet space with no distractions, their sessions are even just that much better because of how well trained that medium is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, from a client perspective, if it's someone who's never had a reading before, never been to VerySoul, and they come to the site, what do they expect? What's the process for a first time person coming?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing that people need to know is we will not ask you for a credit card. That's probably the biggest concern, and I completely understand it because so many websites that you go to, you have to spin a wheel to get a discount, or you have to, you can get a free one, but you have to sign up for a subscription that's going to automatically start using your credit card. We don't do any of that.
Mhm.
Part of the directions from Spirit was to keep this thing scam free. So we don't even do a lot of marketing because of that. So we ask for simple information just so we know how to send them their appointment information. So we have to have an email, and we want to be able to send you a text reminder. And then the client gets to choose between a donated session
Mhm.
for somebody in need, or a professional session if they can afford to pay. If they choose a professional session, they can go in and look at the mediums and read their profiles and read their reviews and make their choice. If they choose what we call a donated session, then they go into the Spirit Match program. So they get a tiny bit of training. They do the check boxes that I said of all the things they agree to. And then they pick a date and time, and the Spirit algorithm matches them to a medium. They receive a Zoom link with an appointment, by email, and then
Mhm.
they'll receive reminders. And then they simply have to show up on time and have their wonderful experience with their medium.
Now, I went to the site recently. We talked earlier before we got started after my friend passed away, and I was thinking about scheduling a session, and I realized there's a lot of mediums on there now. So, what is for a person coming? They might feel a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to choosing a medium. What do you suggest? And there's different mediums, different price points. So, how does a person navigate that?
Yeah, I think don't try to be too logical about it. Is my advice is your loved ones in spirit are trying to point you in a direction. Because you're paying, we need to give you a choice. I
Hmm.
think spirit would rather make the choice, and they can make that choice through you if you let them. So see who you're drawn towards. For instance, the professional mediums are juggled every time somebody taps that screen. So
Yeah, okay. I was
they're
wondering
in
about
random
that.
order. Yeah.
Okay.
So the people toward the top of that screen at that time are probably people that Spirit's trying to get you to.
Okay.
Um, so you can make your choice however you want, but I would say do not ignore your intuition.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because I've said the same thing. I have a list of trusted mediums I give when people ask because I get asked so often. And then people will say, "Well, how do I choose between them?" I'm like, "Use your intuition." Now, as a very logical engineer, left brain person, that's kind of hard for me, but I think that's the best way to do it because you can't go by price, for example. And we've already touched on this. There is this perception because we think if something's more expensive, it must be better. Therefore, if mediums charge more, they must be better. We've already touched on that, and that's my experience has been the same as yours. I've some very not well known mediums that aren't charging much can be fantastic, and I've seen people who charge a lot of money that were really disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but comes with the territory. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's true of I can say it's mediums are hopefully mediums are in this because it's a calling, not a business. But there are some people that are in it because it's a business, and I love Sherry. Think is not, and I know Sherry's an example of one of your mediums. You can tell this is a calling. This is a passion. This is a serving the community. And Sherry, I want to go back to something you were saying earlier that might surprise people. You talked about development. I'm still taking classes. Okay, well, you've been doing readings for years now. You've done over 200 in the last year. And people might say, "Well, I thought this was a gift. It just kind of comes. And why would you need to take classes?"
So, yes, it does feel to some people that it's a gift. I've learned it's a calling, it's a skill. No one's really gifted. We'd like to think we are. It's a skill. We all have
Hmm.
it. We all have intuition. Um, when I began to open up in 2016, I didn't know I was opening up. My communication with my father was so clear. It was so clear. And I didn't understand why my brother and my mom were having such a hard time because I spoke to him and he answered.
Hmm.
And this happened for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, but very strongly for a year and a half. A lot of direction, a lot of details, undeniable stuff. Then came, 4 years later, I learned about Suzanne Giesemann, took a class, and it was only to connect with my dad. That
Hmm.
was my only interest. And then as I progressed in taking the classes and honing in some of these skills, what I was learning from the classes and the mentorship, like Gordon Smith's mentorship, it wasn't about mediumship. It was about your own spiritual growth. I have friends that would take these mentorship programs with me, and I would get up at 7 a.m. for Gordon Smith on a Sunday.
Yeah.
That was the dedication. Um, and they
Because
would say,
Gordon's in
wait,
England for people that are listening.
yes, in the
Yeah.
UK, a
Yeah.
very respected and kind gentleman. Um, they would say, we're not getting tools. Where are the tools? I want the name. I want the date. That's what I want. And I realized that's not why we're taking this. He's breaking down the barriers that we hold ourselves back with.
Hmm.
And the reason I continue to take classes, especially in grief, I'm currently enrolled in David Kessler's grief educator certification
Hmm.
because there's a responsibility that comes with this. And after the session is over, sometimes you may receive an email. Someone is desperate. And it's not that another mediumship reading is going to help. It's that grief, assistance that's going to help. So the classes are for my own personal growth. I know that spirit is developing me, going back to what you had said as far as suggesting to friends or clients on how to prepare for a reading. Well, I was one of those developing mediums that loved to light the candle, loved doing my meditation. I had my system down.
Hmm.
Spirit knocks that right out. There are distractions. You are placed in positions of hearing things that you've never heard before. And you need to be respectful and hold space for that and understand that Sherry's world is very limited and narrow. There's an expansive world out there and circumstances and different grief and different loss. So I will continue to take classes because respectfully, I need to. I need to keep growing as a person. And I know spirit has my back to grow as a medium, but I need to step up and continue on my end as well. So
Yeah.
that's why.
So, and this is for either one of you. What are some perceptions about mediumship that you would like to change with VerySoul or personally? What are some of the things that you'd like to change about the perceptions of mediumship?
Well, I'll start with one. And I think Sherry touched on it a little bit, but I think and this perception issue even exists with some mediums. I think we forget that it is about us being an instrument. And to be the best instrument, we have to almost not be there when it occurs. I'm not saying that very eloquently, but um, the very best mediumship happens without the personality of Sally, without the
Mm.
personality of Sherry. It happens when we can almost just melt away. And that takes a lot of self-work to be able to allow that. We talk a lot about allowing spirit to use us, but it takes many, many years and many, many experiences to really fully understand what does that mean. Now, what could you guys relate to that? You could relate to the moment that you first learned about your child's passing. That moment, there's no ego in you, right? You
Mm.
you are at at you know
You're
on
stripped.
the floor. You're stripped. Yeah, you're
Right,
stripped.
right, right.
And that is where a medium needs to be able to purposefully take themselves to
Hmm.
that place where you're just stripped of your ego and all of the things that you would normally be thinking about and worrying about and wondering about. And I hope I get a good review, or I hope da 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 da, all the things. Um, you have to just be able to put all that aside. That is the hardest part of mediumship. So I don't know,
Yeah.
Sherry, what else do you think we
Well, I
should?
love everything that you said, Sally. What I would love is that they know that we're able as mediums to connect with their loved one because they're there. They're in the session. I'm not connecting to their loved one because I have some magic power. We all have these abilities. But what I like to share with them, because I used to get frustrated early on hearing that, well, we all have these abilities. You can do that, but tell me how. Because it's it's tell me how then, because it's not happening. Um, and for example, something really simple that Maureen Hancock, who's a medium, had showed an exercise on helping parents heal on how to feel the energy of a loved one. And I like to leave people with that I feel want that, so they can feel it. But I encourage them to learn how to connect with their person. It's just a softer way. It's very subtle. We expect things. When I would feel my father's hand pressing up against my back, it was in my mind's eye that I knew it was his hand. But it was that energy, that increased energy, that I knew it was my dad's hand.
Hmm.
And so I wish someone knew that, oh, okay, so it's that feeling, it's that extra charge, or it's that feather-like touch to my face, or it's that thought drop that comes in out of nowhere. That's my loved one. And it's that discernment because you don't want people to depend on you. I actually came to Sally because someone wanted to make more appointments with me. I don't want them reliant on me. I want them to have the tools to do it themselves
Hmm.
and not think like I have this power or any other medium because we don't, you know. Um, but to tell them how, to tell them how to
Yeah,
Brian,
make
what?
that connection.
go ahead, Sally.
No, no, no. I was going to ask you, what do you think are some of the perceptions about mediums that we should be talking to? Because you experience this all the time with folks.
Um, well, it's interesting. They're kind of all over the place. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is people think that, mediumship is just a big racket and it's all, they're all frauds. And I think again, you guys take away a lot of that because people might think of, okay, well, they can look me up and, et cetera. You're getting a minimal amount of information from people that you can get going forward. And it always, it's really funny to me. I kind of smile when people say that because I'm like, those are usually people who haven't had a medium reading. If you've had a good medium reading, it blows that open. And I'm thinking about my friend who she lost her husband and she was a total materialist. And she came to me and said, I want to prove myself once and for all this isn't real. So give me the best medium you know, and I'm going to send you to her. Or I'm going to go to her and I'm going to give her fake, information. But long story short, she's still a very good friend of mine, and she's actually really good friends with the medium I sent her to. They became like best buddies, and because she was blown away. So that's one thing you can do. But then there's the they're all about the money. They all charge $700 a session. They all charge $800, and that's not true. Those are just the people that happen to be seeing. We talked about this. The fact that if you pay more, then you're going to get a better reading. We know that's not true. So again, I think not. I think I know you guys have addressed a lot of those issues. And I love the fact that the mediums, I know that the mediums I'm going to see here are already pre-qualified to some extent, right? As opposed to just somebody out of a phone bar or someone who went to a weekend seminar and took a mediumship class and says, well, now I'm a medium. I'm going to charge $200 for readings.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you think about any of the certification programs that happen, in a class or they happen over a few days or whatever, like mediums have to have with us, they have to be able to perform at that level even better over months. They
Yeah.
have to be able to show consistency as well. And in terms of evidence, and this is really important, it's like we're not just looking for any evidence, we're looking for compelling, unknowable evidence. That's the standard we hold ourselves to, unknowable evidence. And we often hear back from clients, and I'll put this right in their feedback that we publish on our Facebook site, by the way. They'll say, she told me something only my husband and I knew.
Yeah.
Only my husband and I knew. There's no way she could have known that. Those are the moments, right?
Yeah.
Um, but can I talk to one other thing that I think is really important? I just don't want to miss getting this in.
Yeah, please.
Um, and that is there are these different aspects of mediumship. There is the evidential portion, and there's the ability to do that. There's the approachability of the medium. Do you feel a compassionate person sitting across from you, or do you
Hmm.
feel like somebody's, standing apart from you and just rattling off evidence? There's also this aspect of emotion ability. So call it emote ability. I don't think it's a real word, but but I use it. It's the ability to have, but first of all, you have to have a high emotional quotient. So you have to have a good perception of other people's emotions and an ability to control and manage your own emotions in the moment. And then as a medium, to allow spirit's emotions to flow through you and to be able to share those in an emotive way that helps the client more fully experience their person. Those are the sessions when you have a medium who's great with evidence, who's highly compassionate, and who has that emote ability. Those are the sessions where clients will tell us, I felt him there. I felt her there.
Yeah.
You know, those are that's gold.
Yeah.
That's where we want to be.
I think you said that perfectly. And again, I've worked with a lot of mediums in different capacities, and people have done, been trained by different things. And I know the British have a particular way of doing mediumship, and some of them are very particular about the way they do it. And they're like just evidence, name, rank, and serial number. And that the evidence is important, but also people want to feel that connection. They want to feel a connection with the medium. They want to know the medium cares. And the message is important too. And I've seen mediums do one or the other. Some will just give you, oh, your grandmother really loves you, your father's really proud of you, stuff like that, which is that gives mediums a bad name because anybody can say that. So you've got to be, for me, and then I've been a test setter many times, I have to feel the balance because I've had some that'll just like, I'll be sitting here taking notes and they're just running down facts and I'm just writing facts. And at the end of that reading, I'm like, I didn't feel like anything. That didn't change my life. But when someone says, "Oh, I feel your daughter here," and they give me something specific about her and they tell me about her personality, that's when I really feel that connection.
Yeah, the difference is in the mission, right? If your mission is just to prove life after death, then
Yes.
then evidence, right? But that's not our mission. Our mission is to help you hear from your loved one and to help you have a meaningful interaction with your loved ones so that you know they're there, so that you can start building your own connections.
Yeah, I love you said that, and this is why I wanted to have you on because I want people to understand that it's not just about that. I mean, proving it is great, and that's important, but it's not the only thing.
If I could add
It's beyond
something
that.
really quick to that,
Yeah,
just really quick,
yeah.
something that I've found very new for me that I love is when a loved one shares something that happens later and it's out
Hmm.
of left field.
Yeah,
And for those developing mediums, we know when we get that, there's some nerves with it because you have to say it because it's evidence, but it can throw the reading, especially if it's really from left field. And I'll give a very, very quick example. I was in a session with a guest from VerySoul, a father whose son passed, a lot of emotions, a lot of evidence. He could feel his son. We were both very touched by the session. Before the session closes, as I'm saying goodbye to him, his son shows me a floating guitar, a floating electric guitar. I mention it to the father, and you can see his energy diminished. His son didn't play the electric guitar. And so I reassured him, don't discount everything that's come through. Just look for that. It could be
hmm
on a card, it could be in a magazine, it could have his name next to a guitar. Just be open to it, but don't let that connection go away because of that.
hmm
Close the session. The next day, this gentleman emails me and says to me, you are not going to believe this. I am working with an AI app for writing. He's a writer. And he said, an image, and bless him, he screenshotted it for me, which touched my heart. An image of an electric guitar was on the app. And he said, this is a writing app. There's no images. There are
Hmm.
no images. And he couldn't believe it. But that, Brian, oh, that is why we do this, because forget what I brought, what came through from his son, from my mouth to him. It's that evidence later that, hey, Dad, I got you. I'm here,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge. So those are the moments that just make your heart melt, you know.
Yeah. As you said, that reminded me of a story. I had a reading with a medium. I won't say her name right now, but she's famous, and she said something about like she saw something that was going to happen, and I'm like, that's never going to happen. She said, I see you flying to a conference, speaking in front but behind a podium, blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, don't like to travel. I hate flying. I had never spoken in person at that time at anything. I only did things through Zoom. And then, like, it was a year and a half or 2 years later, I was speaking at the Helping Parents Heal conference, the first one in Arizona. And I was on my way back. I was on the plane. Long story, crazy events happened. The Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I decided to listen to something on my phone. And that reading happened to come up. And I was like, let me just listen to this reading again because it was on my phone. I started listening to it, and I remembered that she had said this was going to happen. And I'm like, what are the chances? First of all, it did happen. And then I happened to listen to it when I was on the plane on the way back. And I had no memory that she'd even given me that information. So that's
Um,
something that like
yeah,
you can't make that up. And
yeah,
and she didn't guess it because nobody ever would have.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
love those moments. Love
very
those
cool.
moments.
Yeah.
They find so many ways to let us know. They find so many ways to let us know. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
we hear thousands of stories like this. That's the amazing thing about the platform too, is we've got all this proof. We've got all of this, feedback from so many people who have been through these experiences to show how their experiences went and how they knew. Uh,
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing.
And I wanted to ask you about that, Sally, because I went to verysoul.com, like I said a couple of weeks ago, and then I went again today, getting ready for this. But I think you sent me a link to specials.verysoul.com, and that looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
I saw when I saw that, I saw all the Instagram or TikTok posts or whatever, all the evidence on it. So when people are going to the site, where should they go?
Yeah, good question. So we're behind on updating our web. So our website is about 3.5 years old now. So the landing page that you went to is what we use when we're going out via social media to find what we call outreach clients, people who otherwise wouldn't typically be searching for mediums.
Okay.
So that specials page is the easiest entry point, I think, but they could either go to verysoul.com. It's fine. They can go in and book an appointment. We're working on improving the website though, so that they can learn more about us more quickly, just like the landing page.
Yeah, well, I just want to tell you this. Maybe I should have told you when we weren't on the air, but I
It's okay.
love the landing
All
page
right.
because I happened to hit it, and I'm like, because I thought as a person coming here, if I don't know, I like that social proof you've got there,
Yeah.
and with all the readings that you guys and all the stories that you have, it's really great to get that out there.
Thank
So we're coming to the end of our time, but I know you had some pretty specific goals for Very Soul when we talked a couple of years ago. Tell me where you are relative to those goals and where do you see things going in the next year or two?
Yeah, so numerically, so I'm a numbers person. I'm a mathematician, actuary by background, risk,
Right.
you know that, right? So I'm all about the numbers too. Um, Mathematically, we wanted to be at 1 million sessions by the end of 2026. We're just under 100,000 right now, but we're on a very fast ramp. So I don't know if we'll hit 1 million or not. But what I do know is we'll have made significant impact in terms of sharing these experiences
Absolutely. Yeah.
with so many people. Um, The most important thing that we're trying to establish is to help people know that they can trust us and that there is a lot of structure and standards and, statistics and things that are going on behind the scenes that help ensure that these are really good practitioners and that they can be trusted. That's the most important thing. We're just trying to establish the brand that way and help make sure that people know what's happening inside VerySoul.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, I keep saying it over and over again, but I really mean it. I am so impressed by, what you've done, the platform you've given. Again, I refer developing mediums to you guys. I refer clients to you guys. I think it's a great place to bring the two together. It's a place where people can go and they can know that I'm getting a vetted medium that's not going to charge me an arm and a leg and who is actually going to be available because there's some people that I don't even recommend because you can't get to them. And some people I don't recommend because they charge, too much. And this is a nice sweet spot. It's a great place for a very low risk thing, right? Because you don't want to go out and have your first reading be you spent $800 on something and then you get really disappointed. So, I'm a low risk kind of person. So like I like the fact that this is low risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My very first reading, Brian, after I had a significant loss, before I knew it was a medium, my very first reading was $50. $50. It was by a medium who had no certifications, had only had some training, and she helped me for over 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
The first part of it was on hour 15. She just kept going, 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 going. She had so many details. It was so good. And then she rescheduled more time with me and didn't charge me for it. And I realized that number one, that's what service looks like, right? She was
exactly.
really wanted my friend to be able to tell me everything she wanted to tell me about her death because there were some very important details there that needed to be dealt with.
Hmm.
Um, but she was doing it for all the right reasons. And she was this incredible instrument. She was just this incredible instrument. So it taught me a lot right from the very beginning about what's possible and how many of the traps around mediumship just aren't necessary.
Yeah.
And, obviously spirit put that right in their designs too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Sherry, anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Um, no, no. I mean, we can sit here for another hour. I think we're both so passionate about this topic. And the only thing I would add is any parent or anyone who has just recently had someone transition that may see us as joyful and very bright as we speak about the topic. Don't mistake that for the reverence we hold for what you're going through. We're very passionate about this work. So just to make a distinction that we understand we've had loss, we understand grief, and just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I always try to remember to do that too, because for me, it's been it'll be 10 years in June since my
Yeah.
daughter passed. So I want to be mindful of people that are in that early grief who might be thinking, I'm never going to get back
Yeah.
to joy or passion again. And I want to let people know that that is possible, but we have to also honor, where we are today. So appreciate you sharing that. I want to thank you guys both for being here this afternoon. I want to thank you for what you're doing with VerySoul. So we've said it 1,000 times, but it's verysoul.com. So VERY. If you have any doubts, if you're listening to this, you've never had a mediumship reading, it's a great place to get started. If you have had a reading and you need another reading, it's a great place to find somebody who's trusted to do that again. So with that, I want to say thank you guys and have a great afternoon.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
Brian.
Brian.
Thank you.